monthly Start Out Jamming workshop. Today I'm going to be covering some techniques, little things to kind of gussy up the old pentatonic to give it a little more structure and meaning. I do have some handouts. How many people do we have? 1, 2, 3. I think that's enough here. Just take one and pass it on. Here's another one. All right, so for those of you that know what a pentatonic is, that's what we're going to be using, 5-note scale. For those of you that don't know what it is, I'll kind of touch on it, but we already covered it last month, and you can look at the video from last month, and there's some downloadable PDFs that has a lot of information on the pentatonic. So I don't want to get too much into what a pentatonic is, because now we're going to start using that pentatonic. But it is a 5-note scale. You have a major and a minor pentatonic. The notes are the same. The difference is where the focus is. For instance, a C major pentatonic and an A minor pentatonic are the same notes. They're relative to each other. It's the same notes. But if you're doing an A minor, you want to start on the A. If you're doing a C major, you start on the C. But they all share they both share the same notes. So pentatonic. Up there is a C pentatonic. Okay, so the purpose of this class is to take these notes in a 5-note scale and give it some character, give it some meaning, give it some expression. Because I mean, it does sound neat. Let's see here. No, I don't want to talk to you. At least somebody listens to me. Come on, don't fight. Hey, up there. Okay. There's a little chord progression. C, A minor, F, and G. So you notice how all the notes fit. They don't, it wouldn't be like I went, no, that note clearly ain't gonna, unless you jazz. Okay, so the point of this class is to get beyond that. A few times and you're like, okay, now what? What am I going to do to this? Right? So I did cover some sequencing. I can't remember what class that was, but we do have downloadable files on some pentatonic sequences to further increase your vocabulary, because that's really what this is. It's your vocabulary. You know, when a baby, an infant first starts talking, it might say mama or dada, and then they walk around all day long saying mama, 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 mama. Well, they're actually developing connections in the brain that is going to be useful in their future. They're going to remember mama the next day they wake up. There's a good chance they're going to remember mama again. As musicians, frequently we mess around, we come across some nice things, and by the next day it's gone. We kind of forget what we did. So to develop your vocabulary on your instrument, it helps to have structure and purpose, just like a baby. The baby has purpose. They're trying to learn to communicate, even though at first they don't really know what they're doing other than saying something, making noises, but they get response. Adults all get excited when they say something, so they realize that excitement, and we get this as musicians. We do something and we get a response, and we're like, okay, that's kind of cool. I should probably remember how to do that. So a lot of this is building your vocabulary. Your vocabulary comes from your experiences, things that you come across. And one of the best things you can do when you're messing around, noodling around, developing whatever it is you're doing, is to not only practice certain things, but if you come across something, a particular phrase that you like, learn how to write it down so that you have that. At least record it or something, capture it somehow, so that you're not spinning in circles and the next week get out your instrument and do that same thing over and over again. You want to develop your vocabulary on this so that it becomes more interesting to the listener and it's more interesting to you. You get more satisfaction out of having it as it's developed. So, I remember when I was playing blues and I learned my first little bend. It was kind of like a, and I like, oh, I thought that was so cool. So went home and did it again and did it again and did it again. And so I had my pentatonic and a bend, and I'm like, oh yeah. But after a while I realized, okay, now what? So again, you want to develop your vocabulary, but I encourage you to learn how to write it down, whether it's your own system or tablature or something. Learn how to write it down. And there's different aspects of writing it down. There's the note, the particular pitch, but there's also the timing that goes along with it. It's good to learn how to write down rhythms as well, because sometimes you'll do something with a little timing to it, not just a straight dun 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 dun, but a dun 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 dun. You need to learn how to write that down, and if you don't know, there's a lot of resources. You can always come in here. Pretty much everybody that works in the strum shop has some understanding of theory and rhythm, so we're always glad to help out anytime if you have a question or something you're not sure of. So, enough said about that. Today, let me find my right picture now. Here we go. Approaches and techniques. Everybody's got a handout? Were there any extras?
Yeah, a couple of them.
Okay, great. I noticed a gentleman just came in.
I got it.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And if we run out, let me know. I do have a master of each one back there that we can just get more copies of. Okay, so top line, simple pentatonic pattern. If you have a guitar, you can capo the 5th fret and play on the 4 bottom strings, and you'll be along with us using the ukulele. So yeah, that top line. Now if you can't read tab, then maybe hang out afterwards and we can talk a little bit. It only takes a few minutes at the most to figure out how to read tab. Tab is written out, so there's a line for each string. Okay? And then the number on each line is what fret you're pressing on. If it's a 0, it's that string open, and it's kind of upside down. I play my instrument this way, but you're reading tab this way, so this string here is the top line, this string down here is the bottom line on the text. Okay? So that top line is simple pentatonic pattern. Descending. Okay, so that is what it is. It's, you know, it's safe to play. You're not going to offend anybody if you're in the right key. But again, it gets boring rather quickly. So what can we do to gussy this thing up? Well, one of the techniques is what's called hammer-ons and pull-offs. Now, hammer-ons and pull-offs is also a great way to increase the level of razzle-dazzle. I mean, it's a quick, easy way to sound really good, even beyond what you may even be capable of, because it speeds things up. So I'm doing that second line, doing the ascending, and I just pick one. So on a hammer-on, you pick, and then hammer on. And I'm only picking once, but I'm getting 2 notes out of it. So you can start to see where this can develop into some pretty nice phrases without a whole lot of effort by just that technique. So anytime you're going up in pitch, like a 0 to a 2, that's a hammer on. You pick one, hammer on to the other. It doesn't have to be an open. I can do it from the 5th fret to the 7th fret. Okay. Anytime you're going the other way, if you're going down to a lower note on the same string, it's a pull-off. So hammer on, pull-off. You can do it with open. But a hammer-on and a pull-off is always going to be on the same string. And it just makes sense. There is some more advanced tapping techniques, but we're not here for that today. Okay, so before I go any further, are there any questions up to where we're at now? Is everything making sense what's been said so far, and you're okay with what we're talking about? Okay, well, let's go on then. 3rd line, slides. Now slides, just like it sounds, again, you pick and then slide. And you can slide up and you can slide down. Okay? So you can add that into your simple pentatonic. Where we're starting to add a little texture to the 5-note simple pentatonic phrase. Okay. Now anytime you start doing slides, now you have to take timing into consideration, because each note is going to have a time value, whether it's a quarter note or an 8th note, or what we're about to talk about next, a grace note. This little 3rd line there which says slides, that 2nd measure there, G. Guess I should look at what I wrote. Sorry about that. And for those of you that don't know, in tab, we do have some way to write timing down. These are 8th notes when they've got a flag or a bar connecting them. Straight up like this is a quarter note. And a smaller one like this is actually a half note and gets 2 beats. So that gets 2 beats. These get 1 beat. 8th notes get half of a beat. So timing does become a little more critical as we start getting into this. So the next line, slides with grace notes. Now, first of all, let's talk about a grace note. Does everybody know what a grace note is, or not? Well, let's talk about it a little bit. Here's a picture that I just copied from something just to illustrate. A grace note, written in regular staff form, typically looks like that. It's a smaller note. And it can be put in as a smaller note. In tab, I like to put a small G on it, like I have up there. Yeah, there. A grace note. It's a note that doesn't actually have any time value. It's slightly heard, but the note after the grace note is where the focus is, and that's the note that actually gets the timing. I looked it up online, and you can see up there it says grace note, melodically and harmonically non-essential. It's a strange definition, but there's actually some truth to that. And here's an example of a grace note. Here's a slide. Each one of those notes each has a place in time. 1, 2, 3. Now, grace note So actually it's the second note and third note that have a place in time. And there's a lot of artists that use that. Eric Clapton's really, if you start listening to his music, you will hear it, especially a descending. Eric Clapton does this. He just really likes using that a lot. And now that you've heard me say this, you listen to some of his music, you will start hearing it right away. You, aha, there it is. So it's, again, a grace note is just a note that's going to lead into another note that's actually going to have the time value. So when it's in a series like, see where the second measure, you got a quarter note, and then you got a grace note sliding into that next eighth note. So this, we're timing, you got to pay attention to timing when you start doing some of these things. So the grace note doesn't have time, it's just slightly heard because it's sliding into. And there's other instruments that use grace notes, some of them too much. You'll hear it in some of the Irish stuff where it's kind of like in the form of a trill, the fiddle players and all of them, they got these grace notes and they can have multiple grace notes. On stringed instruments, it's pretty common in blues, sometimes in rock, but nonetheless, it's another texture or another dynamic to add to your phrasings, so that you're taking those 5-note pentatonic scale and giving it a little bit more texture, a little more entertaining. Okay, bends. Bends can be a lot of fun. When you bend, you got to know how much to bend. You see that little half up above that bend right here on this one here. That says to bend up a half note. On a fretted instrument, that's 1 fret. So for a pitch reference, so you know how far you're supposed to bend, like if I take this note and I want to do a half note bend, that's my target, so I want to go up that far and not any further. If there was a 1 up there, it's actually a 2 fret difference, so that's my target. It's a bit more of a bend. On a steel string guitar, you can get a little bit better bends out of them because they don't stretch as much, but you can still get a full note bend on a ukulele. And then if you do much bending, you'll have to retune your instrument because it does stretch the strings out a little bit. Okay, so the first example in this first measure is just a bend that's 2 quarter notes. It's on this D note here. And again, I was going too far because that's a half note there. All right. Okay. So bends are okay, but you can do more with bends. And you see in the second measure there, we have a bend and a release. And each one of those has a time value. That each one of the quarter notes, so that's 3 notes that you're going to hear out of that, because you've got the original note, the bend, and then the release back to it. I pick once, but I get 3 notes, 1, 2, 3 out of it. Then down here at the next example, bend and release with a pull-off, and it's just like it sounds. You pick, bend, release, and pull off. Styles that take advantage of this technique, and you'll come across opportunities to use these. Okay, any questions at this point?